Alrighty. It is TGIF. Thank goodness it's Friday. It's the end of the week. This is Doc from North America. And, we've been having good conversation here about the way the world is functioning. And maybe, it's going to start making a little bit more sense. We're seeing all kinds of interesting points of view. You can see here the dollar index again taking off on the upside, and at the same time we keep on seeing the pairs trades, the major currencies all going down against the dollar. And we saw after our discussion yesterday about the Chinese market out of Shanghai, they smacked that. And then we have a fantastic article we saw on the BRICS, which is even more fascinating. The BRICS are out there yakking away about what they're going to do and what their policies are, or kind of what their policies are. I want to say that let me jump that article. I have it right there on the screen, right there. And one of the things that I found very fascinating here it is. The Escobar, the BRICS spirit is alive and well in South Africa. They get together. They're talking about what they want to do, Silk Road and so forth. China's kind of leading them around. Russia seems to follow along. Whatever is going on goes on. And one of the things that really stuck out in my mind after reading this article was this statement here. Right, I'm going to highlight it. It says, China then carried out an essential revolution as social index went up. And the social index went up. Okay, so I thought we were talking about economics and currency, but it says that was the foundation of our subsequent development. As for the model, this is the BRICS, I guess, it's selection, not election. The Communist Party of China, CPC there, is holistic, Deng said. Yes, to economic globalization, but selectively, and no to political globalization. Political globalization. So I guess they want to be a competitor more than the system, but China talks about being the world reserve currency, but has no currency at the moment. It has a conversion, I guess you call it. It's fixed to the dollar. So confusing, all this stuff. Confusing in the sense that they say one thing and they're doing another, which is very strange. And then, for the European friends here, let's show this one. I really thought this one was 27%. Here we go. I'm going to highlight it. 27% of the UN, no less than 28 African nations, were colonized by France. And finally, real post-French decolonization is on the move. So they're colonized, they're not colonized, they were colonized. They're blaming France. And no wonder France is upside down the way it is anymore. Matter of fact, there's some really ugly articles about France this morning where there's a possibility. That's why they're trying to, Le Pen, I guess, they're trying to lock Le Pen up for hate, speech or, I don't know, something of that nature. And, because she's polling to show that she'd probably be the next president of France, and they can't afford that. Because then all the crazy that's been going on gets kind of washed away, and I guess then the French army doesn't have to be in Paris every day. 10,000 troops stationed in Paris, and every few minutes a military vehicle goes through, then a small company of French military marches through every street, and then there's military on the corners, and so but this is the BRICS. Let's go back up to the BRICS, really, and the end result is that I was trying to figure out what in daylights they want to do, or I mean, I want to be part of the global financial system on some level. They talk about being more. I have no problem. Let them compete, but their economic system is all like it starts off with at an APEC. I'm sorry, at the APEC annual summit in Lima, Comrade X was practically coronated as the king of Peru. Huh? As a lively, movable feast celebrated the brand new $1.3 billion. Why can't they quote it in yuan or something like that if they want other currencies to be there? But 1.3 billion Chiangkai Shai Maritime Silk Road across the Pacific. So I guess that's in Peru. So they're building something there. I guess a port maybe. That's what I'm figuring. There could hardly be more auspicious counterpart to the action in South America than to gather in BRICS member South Africa to discuss African unity in multipolar world, as well as perennial plagues and racism. And yeah, this was very cute. Perennial plagues of racism, fascism, Russophobia, and other forms of discrimination. The meetings were coordinated by Movement Russophile International, MIR, who is not only Russophile or Russophobe, but most of all multi-nodophile, I guess it's in italics, as was the extension of the memorable BRICS 24 summit in Kazan. So anyway, it says here that they're in Kazan, BRICS de facto expanded out to 9 members now, adding 13 member partners, reaching 22 nations. It says here that Saudi Arabia is an immensely complex case and remains on the fence. Yeah, well, why would they want to be tied to this circus act? But anyway, or dumpster fire. Influence G20, they go on about, racism and so forth. I don't understand. I thought it's supposed to be an economic system. They're trying to have their own currency, which makes sense to me. It's kind of like I kind of relate to it as the way like English football. You have the 4th division, you have the 3rd division, you have the 2nd division, you have the first division. I guess you have the Premier League, and then you have the Championship, or is it you have the Championship League, and then you have the Premier League. And so let's say, the G7 and G20 is more like the Championship League, the top. And then, I guess the BRICS are like, the next level or 2 levels below or something like that, like 2nd division. And the whole idea is that 2nd division, when it's a good team and gets its game together and plays well, moves up to the Premier League or the Championship League, and then if it gets even better, it goes to the Premier League. So to me, I see it this way, and I have no problem with the BRICS. I think the BRICS should do their best to become economically stable, economically independent. But for some reason, 28 of these members, or 27 of them, are still staring at France, acting like they're colonies. Go back to that. Look at that. That's the weirdest thing, that they relate to themselves as colonies still, and they're trying to find a way to, get away from the colonialization of old. I don't think there's been a French colony in a long while. I mean, I don't think anybody's. Does France really have? It says here, no less than 28 African nations were colonized by France. And finally, it says, real post-French decolonization is on the move. Post. So usually when you say post means it's kind of over with, right? But it says here the decolonization is on the move. So is it still going on? Is that what they're saying? Or is it their mindset? They're trapped in their heads. They're living, it's like the concentration camp people, from the German situation in the 40s and the 30s, They're still walking around with the death and destruction and pillage and so forth. I guess that's what they're trying to say. So they're like concentration camp. So I guess they should charge France with being evil, I guess, of some form, right? Maybe bring in the ICC and charge all of France with leadership over the last 50 years or 100 years of being criminals. I mean, I don't understand. I really tried to appreciate the article. And all it talked about basically is, Nelson Mandela and Putin and the ANC and the Marxism and all that other stuff. And, I would assume that some people learned that there is no more CCCP. There's only now CCP in China, and that's propped up by the American socialists. And now that Mr. Trump is coming into office, obviously that's not going to be propped up much anymore. So, I guess it's a fight with the American socialist and the global socialist against the capitalist. I guess that's what it really comes down to all the time. And that's what BRICS is on some form or another, I guess. So, it's just, we talk about South Africa here. We look at the, we look at what's going on and so forth in South Africa. And, pretty much in the end result is that we don't really, it's just very unproductive. Let's put it that way. Now, where is the chat line? Where's my chat line here? Why can't I see my chat line? Oh, there's the chat line there. Right? Okay. So I see some people here, but not saying anything. Okay. So anyway, that's the BRICS, and it's interesting to watch. I myself find it fascinating. I'm a big supporter of the BRICS. I think it's great. I think they, I hope they keep on pushing forward and trying to grow their economies. We have 50 states in the United States. So they're like almost 50 separate little countries. California is an enormous one. It expands, from the length. If California was on the East Coast, it would be going from Florida all the way to New Jersey. It's like 1,300 or 1,400 miles long or something like that. It's enormous. And so, but it's only one state. And there are people in California that want to break it into like 5 states, but California doesn't want that to happen because then they would lose power and so forth. We'd have like 54 states or 55 states. But, it's, and you can see the economics of California. They're in really bad shape and, because of their socialist policies. And you can see they're losing more and more. A lot of Republicans have come out of there and, people are voting these people in and so forth, and it's just, we call that the laboratory, like an experiment, and that's how the founding fathers looked at it when there was only 13 of them. They said, hey, you know what? Each one of them will have the power to be like an individual country, and then there'll be a federal connection to them all, but overall they have state rights, powers, and only federal laws will have an influence, and so they all have to kind of agree at different times to be able to push these or invent these new laws or get rid of some of those old laws or, whatever it is, in the end result. But anyway, we're very supportive of the BRICS. We're very happy that they're trying to express themselves and really look forward to hearing more about it. And we always say that we think of, it's a battle between, well, it's not really. There's no doubt South Africa is the number one currency of the BRIC when it comes to an actual currency. But China, because it's an enormous amount of population, their currency converter does trade 5 or 6% a day, in the world. I mean, it's not as big as the European Union or something like that, as much as some media like to pretend that it's the number 2 economy in the world. We all know the European Union is the second largest economy in the world because they have a currency, the euro, and we can measure their GDP every day. We can measure their interest rates every day. We can see the volume of their currency trade every day. And when it comes to China, when you try to do that same thing, you can't because it only trades about 5-6% a day, and it's a converter and it's fixed to the dollar. So, whereas the euro competes against the dollar. So, that's what all I'm saying. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's what it is. And so, so we can compare it and understand it. And, it just, but, this conference they're having, opens the doorway for us to understand them more and try to understand, are they like concentration camp people, from from Hitler years, in situation where, they're still living under the scars of the death and destruction. In this case here, the what do you call it? The colonialization was some form of death and destruction to them, and bringing Western capitalism and ideals obviously was a bad thing. It messed with their heads to the point where they can't. It says it very clear there. Let me just go back to it one more time in the article. They kind of support the idea of, where is it? Selection, not election. Let me just highlight it one more time. Let me see if I can find it again. Selection, not election. I thought that was there. It is right there. As the model, it's a selection, not election. Basically, they say that that's holistic. Dang said. Let me highlight all of it right there. So, it's more of a, and then they say towards the end that they don't. Oh, right at the bottom of it, right after they say that, it also says, but selectively, no to political globalization, and yes to economic globalization. But okay, so basically, it's basically the old story: Marxism versus free markets and free people, or capitalism. That's what it comes down to. See, they unfortunately, the left always wants to try to explain that fascism is capitalism, and it's not. It's a communism. It's not a free markets, free people. It's the opposite. See, capitalism is free markets and free people, and after that, everything else is some type of totalitarian or, controlled, planned economies, I guess you call it. Command and control. That's it. Command and control economies. And so, I like to emphasize that very clearly. Selection, not election, right there. That's what the BRICS are. They're not interested in free market and free people. They're interested more in command and control. So, it's okay. Let them be that way. Will they learn? We hope so. Through living in that world itself. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Is that they're just like the United States. In other words, they have a bunch of members, and we try to follow the ones that are successful, and do their programs like a Florida, versus say a California. That type of thing. Can you imagine if Florida was from Florida all the way up to New Jersey? It would, it'd be dominating California like nothing, and the same thing with, you can see how close Texas has become bigger and bigger, and a lot of major corporations are leaving California and moving to Texas and Utah, and where else are they moving? Tennessee. They're moving to the more free people attitude and capitalism side of it all. But anyway, that's the to look at it today. So now, I got a really nice plan here for Friday, and I wanted to show you, the Federal Reserve. Well, let me just show you the here's the dollar index again. It's lifting up. It has backed off its highs today. You can see that here. I mean, it was all the way up to the 108 area at one point today. It's trading at 107.45 at the moment. It got up to 108.07. So, you can see, they're reaching for King Dollar for whatever reason. be it rockets and red glare going on everywhere now. Besides Tel Aviv, it's anything's possible at this point. With the socialists still in power in the United States until January, they're doing all kinds of goofy things, handing rockets to people and letting them fire them like 4th of July fireworks. Let's go over to here, the bonds. And I wanted to show you, I talk about it, and it gets a little confusing because of the way yield versus price. And so here you can see, this is the, what is this? This is the 1 month Treasury bill. And they started lowering interest rates right here. There was anticipation that they were going to lower them a half. They did. That's right where it did it right there and knocked it down. You can see it's down here. This is the Federal Reserve moving prices down officially. And then you go and you look at the furthest out, the 30-year, right here, over the same time period. And you can see it's trading a little bit higher in interest. And you can see here they lower interest rates right there. And look what happens to the interest rates. They go in a reverse direction. Whereas, matter of fact, I should probably put them side by side even and do that, because it's like you have to be like, to some people who have not been listening to our webinars, they're probably like, wait a minute, I'm a little confused there. What's this all mean again? It's like, wait a second. So here is, and let's do this too. Let's move this one right there. So there is the 30-year and the interest rate right there over the same time period. And then, let's see, let's go like that. Bing. And then right here, here is the 30-day, which can be influenced by the Federal Reserve very easily, You can see where when they lowered interest rates right there, they did go down, and they stayed down, and they're down there now because it's only 30 days. But it's still yielding 4 point. Matter of fact, it's jumped back up since yesterday. Now it's trading at 4.612, basically 4.61% interest. That's the interest rate, and that's the price of the bond. That's the interest rate right there. And then you can see right here, here's the 30-year bond yielding 4.58. It was reversed yesterday. It was a little bit higher than the 30-day. And you can see they lowered interest rates right there in September. Let's move this up a little bit like so. And you can see, it turned into a mess. Interest rates rose. So there's interest rates rising. There's interest rates right there when they lowered it in September, dropping. So, in other words, the Federal Reserve can control 1 month bills, but they can't control 30-year ones. The markets are too big to control it. And so there's a good example of understanding and seeing the odd situation with the interest rate and so forth right there. It's a very odd situation overall. The bond traders are not, the private companies that trade bonds have no interest in giving away free money like that. In other words, they're not willing to move the interest rates down to like 4% or something like that. Especially when you got the 30-day money trading at 4.6. Basically, the 30-year kind of bounces back and forth. One moment it's above it, one moment it's below it. So basically, it's a, and you can buy and sell either one of these things at any day. So why would you buy a 30-day when you can buy a 30-year? And just hold on to it and get out of it any day you want. So, and that's the mechanics of it all. And then you look at the municipal bonds and so forth. You look at the California ones; they're going through the roof. They're enormously higher in cost. And you look at the Florida ones, and they're incredibly lower in cost. It means good government versus bad government. There are good ways of looking at all of it. And then currencies are the same way. So let's drift back to the currencies itself. I'm going to get rid of the bonds there, which was fun. And I thought that was a good way of, basically getting a better grip on it all, And so you can see there's the dollar index. Let's jump over to There's the euro. We're going to go back to the old platform to look at the euro. And there it is right there. I mean, they're smacking it down. That may be more of this military thing going on with Biden. I don't know. You know, I mean, I saw a couple articles. Like, I saw one article. It was very interesting. Gold had, had the best week in, I think they said in over a year now. You know, it came up from, what, 25 and change, something like that, 25.70 up to $27. It's a 1 week move, really powerful move. Now silver and so forth hasn't done that, but yeah, and copper you can see. When we go to the metals, you'll be able to see that. But we're interested in looking at the BRICS and the mechanics of it all solely because we watched currencies and we watched the interest rates. Interest rates influence the currencies, and inflation, influences the currencies. And money runs to places that make more money, and they leave places that don't make as much money. That type of thing, So you can see here the euro today is getting knocked down even harder. It went into the sell yesterday. I thought I had the red line on there. Closed in the sell there. You can see it on the spreadsheet. Let's find the spreadsheet there. There's the spreadsheet. And you can see there, dollar index, 7 weeks now in a buy right there. 3 days in a buy, and then you can see right there is euro, 8 weeks in a sell and 1 day in a sell. Now today's the second day in a sell. So we're going on a second day now in a sell. And so you can see this is how the currencies are marching along, and there's not much else that can be said about it, but the actual numbers. Again, that's why we talk about all these things. We're looking at the numbers. I'm not complaining about China being a communist country. I don't have to live there, so I don't care. But it is what it is, and we'll follow the math as time goes on. It's easy to follow the math in Europe because their currency floats, and it's hard to follow the math in China, and we have to find other ways of looking at it solely because there's an opinion out there that if the currency was set to float, the GDP could be 1% or 1.25% or something like that, and instead they claim it's like 6% or 5% all the time, and that's because the currency is fixed. So it's something to think about when you're trying to measure to what to buy and what not to buy. That's what it comes down to. It's as simple as that. What to buy and what not to buy. Over on the cable, you see the cable there. Cable actually firmed up a little bit until, let's see if we can move this up. Where do we move it up at? Where's the little, there it is. You see, and all of a sudden it's rolled over again. So we went into the sell yesterday. That also has a 1, as you notice up on the spreadsheet, right above it. GBP says 1, and it says 7 weeks in a sell at the same time. Again, not a lot of money going towards those countries right now. And just when we thought that they were trying to put a little bottom in, it flipped again. The Labor Party is really making it tough there on the economics, it looks like to me. You can see Swiss. I mean, matter of fact, I think, do we have the election? I think we did mark the election. That's it, right. Okay, so there it is. There's the election. Matter of fact, we should make that bigger and, make it, like that. 18, there it is, election. And you can see, there was a honeymoon. They had the election. Labor got control. There was some buyer remorse for a little bit, but boy, they took off. They thought, okay, this is going to be great, And now we are below where the election was. You can see that there, and that's what that dotted line is. So Labor, whatever policies they're coming up with, it's kind of like the sugar high we saw in China. Hooray, and then all of a sudden they realize, oh, no, this is not what we want. That type of thing. All right, now there's Swiss. Swiss kind of just hanging out. We figured it's going to be bouncing between this range. It's in the second day of a buy. Let's grab this one right there and just stick it there. Matter of fact, we should grab that red one and put the sell in there too. Where's it? Right there. So, but we're in that weekly buy now for a bunch of weeks. You can see it on the spreadsheet. That is line, what is that? Line 43 and 44. 7 weeks in a buy, 1 day in a buy, and now it's a second day in a buy, as you can see there on the screen. The strength in the dollar against these pairs trades are really starting to stick out, and it could again. Remember, they're firing rockets left and right, and they're going and they're on the edge of Europe. They're in the center of Europe right now. Ukraine is the center of Europe, literally the physical center of Europe, the breadbasket of Europe. It grows the most wheat and so forth. And there's a full outright war going on with the Russian Federation and the Ukrainians, fighting for their lives. So, it's I guess that's a good reason to probably run on some way away from the European currencies. But what's interesting, let me just we don't really do this that much, but look at this. Look at the euro zloty, the Polish currency, which is in the heat of it all, really. And look how stable it is over the same time period. Here it is. We could go all the way back to the invasion. That was February of 22 or January of 22, right? There's 23. I guess we have to add more time to it, but it's still in the fours, think about the Turkish lira. It's gone from 1 to 36. The zloty goes from 4.4 to 4.8. Wouldn't I'm not laughing to be nasty, but wouldn't the Turkish people be happy if their currency went from 1.4 to 1.7, not 1.4 to 39.4? Talk about ouch, So in many ways, it's like looking at the United States. You have 50 states doing 100 things. Basically, let's add more time to it and say okay, and we'll do the same thing right there. Let's go to the weekly and add the same time frame. There we are. There we go. Okay, and say close. And now let's go back to the war. So you can see here. Okay, so the war started right here in February, and the currency was trading at 4.5. It blew all the way up to almost 5 at one point over a 2-week period, and they straightened out after a while, and they realized that the world wasn't coming to an end, and they fell back to 4.6. Again, just a quick note there. We can only, we're using numbers. We're looking at facts. There's prices. And like I said, that's not that bad, when you really think about it. They're on the edge of the war. They're part of NATO, so they're protected by being members of all the countries there. And obviously, Ukraine is not a NATO country, and what the war has done is forced Finland and one of the other ones, maybe even Sweden or something like that. Maybe they're both now or I don't know, two of them. I know Finland for sure. It might have been Sweden that switched to NATO. They joined NATO. But when you look at the currency itself, you can't really be that petrified. 4.5 to 4.9. Wouldn't the Turks kill for that? Honestly, their currency's gone from 1.1 to 40.1. Ow! Talk about pain and destruction. Forget the missiles. Their former prime minister, president, is doing his best to destroy the country economically. So, and all we're doing is looking at numbers. If I'm not making this up. This is just a fact of life. This is not, me being, fantasy. Go back to no more than, where is it? Here is February at the end of Mr. Trump's administration. We talked about that yesterday. Mr. Trump, the currency was trading at 9 right? And they got excited, Got Trump lost, hooray! Boy, and I bet they were now saying no hooray. Look at the poor currency. From 9, it went to 40. Talk about ow! It had a spike day up into the 40s. It was trading in the 30. We can say 39 if you feel bad, or 38 and a half if you want to be more realistic in some fact. But it traded there. You see these wild swings because it's so illiquid. But excuse me, that's the only way we can measure things, traders. We can only measure them through prices and action. Words, look at the statements coming from BRICS. Selection versus election. They're not up for free markets or free people. They want command and control economies. So we'll see how well they do with a command and control, organization. I guess you could say, like the way the G7 and the G20 is. So what do we got here? So let's go to, I guess, let's take a look at the yen. The yen's kind of trapped up the top end of its range. You can see it's really kind of lost. It's in that weekly buy now for weeks upon weeks. You see it on the spreadsheet, line 39 and 40. 7 weeks in a buy, and one day in a sell. It's in a sell for a second day, so that's good. It's gaining against the dollar a little bit, but overall it's just kind of stalled. No real direction. From there, we just already seen the damage of the great experiment right there. Don't need to say much more than that. And we go to South Africa now, where the epicenter of the BRICS are at the moment, having their conference and discussing ideas and and expansion and so forth. And so you can see here, it's got a downwardly slope, but we're not seeing gold take that direction. And let's show you gold. Right there's gold. You see gold is still climbing, and that's probably, again, the rockets red glare. Not really a good thing for people to fire missiles and kill people all day long. This is definitely not a good commercial way to grow, let's put it that way. You can see there, it is trying to get into the weekly buy, but so far it's just gotten up to the, you can see the white line is trying to get through the zero line. It's close. And I guess if there's any more scare going on, we're going to see it, possibly make that challenge by the end of the day or going into next week. Then from there, we go over to silver. And there's silver. And silver, it's trying to get into the buy today. It only went into the daily sell yesterday. But it's still 4 weeks or 3 weeks in a sell, and it's not lifting that well to put a charge into it. I imagine they're just pairs trading it. They're buying gold, selling silver, that type of thing. Then from there, we go when we go to copper, we're basically looking into this. I want to say the Soviet Union, but into the CCP. We're looking into China. Because copper is like a gold to them because of all their construction. They have those ghost cities. The cities exist, people just don't live in them. So they build things half the size of Manhattan, literally giant cities, and nobody's living there. And then after a couple years, after getting done building them, then they knock them down. It's your classic socialist commercial concept. And then they rebuild them again so that they can give people jobs. I'd say leave the cities alone, let the people move into them. Instead, I don't understand the logic to that at all. It's like, well, just, let them live in them then. Give them homes. I mean, they're wasting a lot of money building these giant cities and then destroying them, and then that's why they call them ghost cities. And then they rebuild them again. And that's really weird. But that's why copper is so important over there for the piping and so forth, I guess. And so there's the copper, and copper's showing a little bit more weakness again today. I think it'll dig its heels into the 380 to $4 area. I'd be surprised if it found a way to drop below that area. But you can see it's 4 weeks in a weekly sell, going on a fifth week next week at this rate. And then from there, we look at the platinum, which is having a real hard time getting going. It's in a sell. We are getting a little volatility signal of a green and a red. The last one, we had a nice spike up about $40 on it when it happened. Closed at what was that? 9.45 basically, and by the end of the next day, it closed at 9.74. So was that a $30 move? 45, 5, about $30 move, and and then the next day again, it picked up a few more dollars, and then it stalled out again. We're also in that same situation where the pressure is the downside. It's in the weekly sell now 4 full weeks. So, what else we got going on? I guess that's about it. Let's go over to energies. Let's see energy. Energy. Let's take a look at the North Sea oil, Brent. And BZ. Right there it is. And so there it is. You can see Brent was up this morning a few cents. You can see now it closed yesterday at 74.23. Not counting, I guess you could say, think about, I'm talking about the poor. I don't know what's going on around the whole planet at the moment, but I did see this morning, it's an Arctic blast hitting Europe, 8-inch snow, things like that. What's that, about, 14 centimeters, something like no, I'm sorry, 3 centimeters of snow, that type of thing going on. So, energy and electric and so forth are, desperate. So you can see here, Brent closed yesterday at 74.23. Right now, as we speak, it's trading at 73.73. So, we're looking at down about 50 cents. You can see we're fighting to get into the weekly buy. It's been real choppy of late. You can see we've been in a daily buy for, 6 out of 7 days. So it's been really pushing to try to go up. And imagine, between the rockets and the Arctic blast, and it's in a tough situation there. Then right there is Texas sweet crude, or Texas crude. You can see there, same situation, and they usually march all the time. They march in the same direction. So you got a close yesterday of $70.09, basically 10 cents, $70.10. Today it's trading at $69.59. So it's down 60 cents, 59 cents, something like that. So there's pressure on the Texas crude also on the downside. I guess they're starting to, and you can see here we were flirting. Here's the weekly. We were a little bit above, and you can see right there. Is it at a zero at this point? It's so hard to tell. It looks like it might be at zero. Ooh, there it is. And the answer to that is, I think it's at zero, price-wise. It's fallen out of the plot. Yeah, the plot is at zero even. So, it's like the fast has jumped up, but the slow is still hanging underneath. If it closes down $1 today, chances are it obviously will probably close in a weekly sell still. All right, and then from there we'll go to natural gas, because natural gas obviously is used to warm people. Europe, I know that Mr. Biden, our socialist, for some reason cut off Europe. Don't ask me why. They won't ship American natural gas to Europe at the moment. None of half the things they do don't make any sense. Let's see. People are freezing, and you're not willing to sell them natural gas. Okay. And we have an enormous abundance. Matter of fact, you can see right here, As much as it's been lifting up and pushed, it's definitely going to close in the weekly buy. Look what they're doing to it today. They're really taking a punch to it on the downside. Um, Yesterday it settled at 3.34 basically, and today it's trading at 3.24. It's dropped down a tenth of 10 cents. So that's big in this product, and you can see how high it's been up. Coming off those lows of $2.51. So this is over the last beginning of the month, cold weather, they drove it up, and but again, it's very cheap here in the States compared to other places in the world because we're the largest producer of natural gas, which is an odd reason to cut off selling it since we grow so much of it. I don't know. Don't ask me to try to explain these people. They're just socialists and whatever philosophy that is. It's so hard to say because socialism encompasses Marxism and socialism and fascism and command and control. I don't know. It's all communist. It's all confusing to me. A lot of dreams and wishes more than it is anything else. All right. From there, we'll go check out the Spanish energy company, who's been reading the market well. It's been following the downwardly drift of natural gas and energy in particular. Let's see, right there it is, right there. And we just seen. Let me refresh it, and then we can see that it's in a weekly sell for a bunch of weeks. It tries climbing up. You can see that it's trying, and you can see it's been very firm, except for the last, for about 7 days back it got firm. It went into a buy, but we're in weekly sell, so you're not taking the buy. You're just making sure you're not short. And it hasn't given us a red dot yet, and it went under 3 days there. So it's basically like a neutral position since it jumped up here, and then with green dots there, it's still a neutral. And then because we're in weekly sells, and so then now you can see today they're popping it up a little bit, and that's probably because of those record. And I don't know if it's record cold, but there's some very tough cold weather with this Arctic blast. I know that we've seen stories, and I'm giving a shout out to Polina out there. Polina, wear that scarf. Cold, cold, cold. I'm sure you're definitely not happy about that. And so, the cold weather, I know that they got snow in Austria, like in September. Never see snow in Austria in September, but this year they did. So, the world, we're going into this global cooling, and it's really having an effect on Europe in particular. All right. From there, let's see what we do. I guess that's about it. I don't think we need to see the U.S. ExxonMobil. You can see where the energy sector is. All right. From there, let's jump over to some of the markets. And I was doing some because of the BRIC stories, I was really looking around trying to understand what's going on. And so I quickly ran to Shanghai to see what they did, and obviously they've taken it on the chin again. After all that stuff I said about it yesterday. Maybe somebody was listening. Run, Forrest, run. And here it is there today. You can see the smackadoodle. They kept on saying it's probably going to go challenge this low and then go challenge this low right there. Well, the next day they went and challenged this low on us in one fast swoop. And then when we go and look at like Hong Kong is challenging the lows of over here, which is really amazing. Check this out. Here's Hong Kong. I guess they keep on losing, a business status, because of the communists keep on locking up business people. They just locked up 45 of them for espousing capitalism. And so for like 10 years, they're going to go to jail because they're capitalists. And so here is the Hang Seng, and it took, a dive again, just like that, and it's checking out the lows here. This is the sugar high, from the stimulus. Matter of fact, I saw there was another article out there about the stimulus, but I was going to say something about it when I was talking about South Africa conference, because it's there's a lot to be said or learned from it. Let's say that there's a lot to be learned. China says what it said in South Africa, and at the same time they have almost a trillion. They're the third largest bondholder in the United States. The number one bondholders in the United States of American bonds is Americans. We hold about 45% of them, almost 50%, round numbers. And then same time, Japan is the second largest bondholder of American bonds. They own about 10%. And then China is third. They own a little under 10%. They own like a little under $1 trillion worth, where China, I think Japan owns like 1.2 trillion, and China owns something like 998 billion, something like that, right under $1 trillion. So they're the third largest bond holders, and you wonder, they could take all those bonds, and that would not help. That would stimulate only less than 20% of their economy if they sold all those bonds. And you would think if they're really caring about stimulating their economy, they would at least take a chunk of it. Take a $500 billion. That would be, what would that do? That would equate to about 6 trillion, almost 7 trillion won. And that would help out. That would be a quarter of what they need, basically. And that would show a stimulus, but they're only using 1.4 trillion won to prop up the try to stimulate the economy. So this is going to be an interesting horse race to watch, in dollar terms. Here's Hong Kong, and we're seeing, that same move where right now, you have in the same range there, that's where Shanghai is. And so we're seeing the pressure on both stock indexes, pushing them down. Here's one that caught my eye, excuse me, because I was looking around and trying to understand, the nations around there, because they were talking about, the Pacific and so forth. I went to the Kospi. I always go right to Taiwan, but I went and looked at the Kospi, and that's really taking it on the chin, which is a real surprise to me. Not sure, maybe because they're, they economically they do kind of do things with North Korea and China. They have a train system that runs from South Korea to North Korea, and then it runs into China. And it's like a business industrial thing, and they have this giant industrial park in North Korea that has an enormous amount of people from South Korea working there every day. They call it something park, and it's an industrial park of some form. And so, and then they have North Koreans working there too, and it's something going on there financially. But look at this. They've been in a weekly sell, South Korea, the Kospi index, for 6, 7, 8 weeks, something like that. You can see here, there's 6 weeks right there. And you can see just recently we're starting to firm up here. But it's, when you look at the price, you can see it's been, this is the unwind of Japan, that one right there, of the big carry trade. Then they bounced. And then I guess this was the sugar high somewhere in here. And you can see it firmed, but it didn't take out these highs at all. And now it's just rolling over the same way Hong Kong and Shanghai are. They're just rolling over, So there's definitely something going on there. Whereas when you go and look at Taiwan, the chip center of the world, basically, and Taiwan is not really rolling over whatsoever. I mean, they do their buy and sell stuff, but overall, and here's Taiwan. Let's give it a refresh right there. And you can see here, it's not backing off. It's trying to get into the buy. It's been in a weekly sell just for 3 weeks. And you can see it moved down. It had its pressure for that time period. And then you can see here, it's nowhere near this area here. It's nowhere near this area here. It's way up here still. So it's holding on pretty well. I would imagine, with you know China trying to stimulate their economy, Taiwan will benefit from it, and that's probably, that's what these markets tell us. They tell us the story of, the reality. It tells us the reality. You can see the Kospi in South Korea. You can see, the Shanghai, and you can see the Hong Kong, the Hang Seng, having their problems, falling apart, or let's say rolling over from the sugar high of that stimulus. And the hope, obviously, is that they will do more. But the CCP and the People's Bank of China has declared a 5-year policy of just another 1.4 trillion yuan, Chinese currency converter. And they really need to do about, like I've said over and over here on the webinar, they need to do between 25 and 30 trillion yuan. So they're undervaluing how to stimulate. In other words, they need to spend a heck of a lot more, and they're not so far. And they got a good 7 trillion sitting in the United States banks, and they refuse to move it back to China. So that's another confusion. If you're trying to create the BRICS and you're trying to become an independent financial center away from G7 and the United States, why do they leave $1 trillion sitting in the United States? Why don't they just spend it on themselves? Put it in their own banks. It says a lot, in other words, imagine if I was a reporter and I was interviewing these people at the BRICS and saying, great, let's see if you can beat capitalism with your communism and your socialism and so forth, your fascism. Fine, let's let the markets be free and let everybody do their thing. You can do what you want, and these other free countries will do what they want. But my question more would be, with that question, I'd be like, but why do you keep $1 trillion in the United States? Why don't you just move it to your banks into China? Why don't you just move it there? That would be a good way of helping to stimulate. And, it'd be another 7 trillion in stimulation to the economy just by moving it there. You don't have to give it to anybody. Just move it there. So if you want to be independent, are you going to do that? You don't have to start your currency floating free at the moment, but just move that money there. Doesn't sound, every time they say this stuff, how many times have we caught them over the last 3 and 4 years and 5 years where they're buying U.S. bonds in other countries at the same time? Like Belgium at one point had $300 billion worth of U.S. bonds stored there. Then we found out that the Chinese were the ones that bought it, and it was parked there. So, there's a lot of questions that always fly through my head trying to understand the BRICS and what they're really trying to do compared to what they do, that type of thing. And matter of fact, that might be the title today. Move your $1 trillion to China to stimulate, that type of thing. It's a good question for if there was a reporter that was actually paying attention to what they say and then compared to what they do. That would be an interesting question, So, let's see. Okay, what do we got here? Title. In regards to this project, I will find out tomorrow. I expect you to finish up tomorrow. And how I might consider a new manager for this, but I doubt since the bank is cutting costs to had a net loss. Okay. So it looks like this is the end of Okay. So it looks like this might be the end of the webinars. That's what I was figuring. Webinars. Well, traders, we'll find out. So, this may be Doc towards the end of ever seeing this, doing this again. We'll just we'll come up with our own morning show. We'll try to do something like that. So, Mm, oh, interesting. It would be a pity to lose the channel like this. I agree. I say, Captain, would you be kind and ask the person responsible for the webinars for free? It would be a pity to lose the channel like this. I agree with. Okay. Great videos and great knowledge, in my opinion. And the webinars? All right. All right, traders. This is Doc. And we may be catching you on Monday or not. We don't know yet. We'll find out. So, if it is not, that's what it is. So, happy trails to you. Until someday maybe you meet again. So, we'll talk to you all maybe on Monday. I don't know. We'll find out. Tune in and find out. So, happy trails, traders.